Welcome to the Mount Angel Theater Studio TV effort, everybody. It is me, John Deschler, bringing you another live stream, podcast, webcast. I have a very special guest today, Ms. Phyllis Kirkwood, the founder of the Oregon Substitute Teacher Association. And I've attempted to set up some infrastructure here, downtown Mount Angel, that will be both functional and casual at the same time, such that we can engage in a beginning conversation to share with everyone about your inspiration and the inception of the Oregon Substitute Teacher Association, otherwise known as OSTA. My name is John Deschler. I'm the proprietor of the Mount Angel Theater Studio, a humble 100-seat theater studio space in downtown, beautiful Mount Angel, Oregon, repurposed by my friend Stu Rasmussen over 40 years before he passed 2.5 years ago. And I am here trying to be viable in this space and bring quality content, whether it's live jazz, live classical music, or mindful and intelligent, extremely committed conversation to my humble Mount Angel Theater Studio YouTube channel or page, which is, if you're watching right now, where you're watching it. Now, I'm going to share with Phyllis, and I'm going to, this is DIY. You know DIY?
Do it yourself.
That's correct. So I have to do everything. If I forgot something or if I want to check something, I've got to do it. And so I'm going to do that, okay, to make sure everything's working there. It is. That would be the advanced auto scene switcher plugin, something that caused me consternation much in the last couple of months. So now what I can do, and what I should do, is go over here to my YouTube channel on my phone. Are you following me? Turn off the volume so I don't get feedback. Select this live stream and say share, copy the link, and now I can actually promote this live on Facebook. And all I'll do is I'll say live, and I'll post the link, paste, and bingo. So, they always want you to press another button. Okay, there's another button, there's another button. So this is what we would call, I believe, housekeeping, right? In various industries and whatnot. So there it is. Very good. So I'm sitting here with Phyllis Kirkwood, who in 1975, as a professional educator, was compelled, for some reason, to begin and establish and start an organization and an association. Phyllis, can you tell me what it was that stimulated that original nerve?
We had several substitute teacher organizations sprinkled throughout Oregon. And I happened to be in Beaverton after having taught full-time in several places for 10 years. We had a contract as the Beaverton Substitute Teacher Association with the Beaverton School District. And the school district had a strike during that time. The teachers were were trying to get the substitutes to work or not to work. There was a big confusion. And the substitute teachers voted to continue to study the question.
The question of
whether to join the BEA in their strike effort. But the corollary of that motion was to establish a statewide organization for substitute teachers. And Betty Mitchell was the head person in that effort. She went to other endeavors, and that mantle seemed to fall on me. I really talked to many other substitutes in several different organizations, and the OSTA was founded with 9 different substitute teacher organizations of different towns.
around Oregon.
Yes.
And so you established relationships. So this would have been over the early 70s, 72, 73, 74, what you just described.
They came together. Now, Betty Mitchell and I realized there were people who worked 600 hours for PERS that were not in the retirement system. In those days, the school districts had to report their working hours to the ESD. So we went to the ESD, and we were able to get lists of substitute teachers and how many days they worked. Betty Mitchell and I were in a car driving to Salem. I remember this very clearly. We crossed out the names because we thought they were private information. But in the committee, the senator held up the paper. You see these 35 people, substitute teachers that have worked more than 600 hours. They should be getting PERS. I'll make sure that they get PERS. So that was in 1973. And I still have a paper that documents that happened. And from that day on, substitute teachers were able to get PERS, and retroactively from that time.
So that was just those informal 9 different little associations around the state that got together to make that happen.
Yes.
In 1973.
In 1971, in Teacher Standards and Practices Commission, we felt that substitute teachers should be able to renew their teaching licenses with experience in the same manner that regular teachers did, because you could renew a teaching license with 1 year teaching experience, which we said would equate to 180 days of substitute teaching. So we wrote a letter to TSPC and asked that we could have substitute teachers recognized for license renewal with the 180 days of substitute teaching. OEA stood up against that.
Wow.
But the commission approved that substitute teachers could renew on the basis of 180 days. And so it was for many, many years. And we always said substitute teaching is the best education and the best professional development for a substitute teacher. Because every day you go into another teacher's classroom, you see how they have it set up. You see how their behavior management. You see how their lesson plans are set up. You are learning each and every day.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, you are reflecting, how did I do? What did I learn today? What can I take with me to the next classroom? So a substitute teacher does more reflection each and every day, month, and week than a regular teacher can possibly do. So we believe that if professional development is reinstated for substitute teachers, it should be 180 days of substitute teaching.
What do you think led to all of that activity in the early 1970s? Do you think it may have kind of come out of some of the civil dynamics of the 60s? Why were there teachers getting together around Oregon in the 1970s, substitutes? Do you know? You may not know, but I'm asking you to guess too.
I think that the backbone of substitute teaching have been retired teachers. And there came a time when there were not enough retired teachers to completely fill the workforce, and more teachers coming out of the GI Bill. There were a lot of people who went to school to become teachers, and substitute teaching was something that they could turn to and have as a career of substitute teaching.
Particularly if there were no full-time positions, if they had gotten their full credential, right?
They were either waiting for a full-time job because they just got out of college,
Right.
or they were raising their family. They didn't want to put the time in to work full-time, but some were just working to get a new living room couch.
Well,
But-
it's a great part-time job, isn't it?
And others were coming off a long career of full-time teaching, but they still wanted to stay with the students in a classroom and benefit the schools.
Make a contribution. So by 1975, what was the final catalyst for you to take the step, I assume with a few others. You must have had other people involved by then.
Well, I think it puts just what I mentioned, that we had a mentor in the State Department of Education. He was the deputy director, Milt Baum, and he counseled us in setting up our Constitution, saying, don't make the quorum too high. You'd be surprised how many statewide groups cannot do business because
They can't produce a quorum.
they don't have a quorum.
Wow.
And that is how we had the backing of very kind, wonderful administrators who believed in substitute teaching and having a good workforce of educated substitute teachers to call upon. Although we're always told, we hope we don't ever have to hire any substitutes. But just in case we need them, we want them to have a master's degree. We want them to be very fun people, get along with kids. The kids will put their phones away, and it will be a great day. So we want to be friends with our school principal, and we actually exist to facilitate that getting the best teachers into the classroom for the benefit of our students. So each year we would pick an action that we would work on. Early on, we wrote to all the principals of Oregon, please have lesson plans in place in case there's a substitute teacher. We want to know who the students to call upon, people who are going to need extra help. What are the textbooks? When is recess time?
Where's the fire escape? Yeah.
Right.
All of that stuff.
Any assemblies, bus schedule, duties, special duties.
The secretary's phone number.
There should be a substitute teacher handbook in every school.
And there still is not.
How we started out. Then another year we would study health insurance or unemployment. Another year. Then how to put out a good newsletter for our association.
When did you start the annual meeting?
The annual meeting was from the first. This will be the 49th annual meeting.
Okay.
We have had annual meetings every year.
Wow, excellent. Except in person, you missed 1 year because of COVID? Or two?
We, maybe it was 2 on Zoom.
Yeah, because of COVID, folks. We were all impacted.
Yeah, I think that was it.
I'm going to pause you and just add a few things. I want to point out that Phyllis and I have become very friendly over the last, what would you say, about a year and a half or so, as the organization made me vice president about a year ago. And I substitute in my rural districts. I'm the vice president now, and we're getting ready for our 49th annual meeting on October 11th at Chemeketa Community College. Details, I believe, were emailed out possibly last night and are probably on the website.
Yes.
We have wonderful, small, incredible group of OSTA board members and supporters. You're looking at one here, and you're looking at the longest standing one here. And to the extent that, again, as we mentioned earlier, Phyllis and I were together at the Capitol 2 days ago. Was that 2 days ago? 3 days ago?
Yes.
Last Monday, because there were a couple of commissions, there was a couple of reports on a few commissions and work groups that they had put together on general education subjects, and the substitute task force that has just ended, that was initiated by Tina Kotek, the governor, and facilitated by Senator Dembrow and his associates down there in Salem. We've all been highly engaged in and watching and concerned about. We had one of our members on the task force. We were slightly disappointed. Would that be an understatement or an overstatement? Slightly disappointed that we had only one active substitute on the task force. Seemed slightly out of balance to us, but we're still willing and able to work with anybody who's sincere in wanting to help substitutes and improve conditions at Oregon schools, ultimately for all students. You know, I was talking to Sally Sue, one of the past presidents, vice presidents, and I'm sure Sally Sue Sellers, big hello to you out there, I hope you're watching, has been with you for about 46 or 7 of those 49 years, I think.
Oh, absolutely. When the law was initiated that if you work more than 10 days in an assignment, you will be paid a higher salary. The group in Ontario is so close to Idaho that their school district did not want to pay that. So Sally...
They wanted to act a little bit more like Idaho, is that what you're saying?
Sally and I got in her little Volkswagen Rabbit, and we went to Ontario.
I heard about this, for a school board meeting. In a town of what, 300?
We did not go to the school board meeting. We went to the meeting of substitute teachers, where it was decided that the members would go to their school board meeting and say that first graders were crying because of having a different teacher every 2 weeks.
In other words, to standardize practices around the state.
Because after 10 days, instead of paying a higher salary to the first qualified teacher, they would just put in a different teacher.
A different substitute. So we call it the 10-day boogie. We find in the state of Oregon, which I have to pause and I need to explain certain things. It's a difficult, and I'm the first one to recognize this. It's a difficult conundrum when you have 4.5 million people spread out over an area as large as Oregon. It's a very large state geographically. You have a concentrated 50% of the population in the beautiful, fertile Willamette Valley and what we call the I-5 corridor, where there's probably about 2 million, 2.5 million people. The largest cities, Portland, the capital, Salem, Eugene, and Corvallis, where the big universities are. And then you have the rest of the state, which is huge. And historically, particularly, if we went back 75, 85, 95, or 100 years ago, those poor little rural communities out there in the Wild West had to make do with whatever they had in terms of human resources and otherwise. So I understand, and I'm sympathetic to the fact that it's a very complicated landscape. Now, that being said, it's a lot better now. But still, you can't get substitutes to go from the Portland area to Burns or to Baker City. I mean, it's a 6-hour drive, you know. So it's, you know, particularly like compared to East Coast states, where you might live somewhere and be able to sub in like 3 or 4 different states because they're all within 20 miles of each other, you know, where the corners come together, et cetera, et cetera. It isn't like that here. It's huge, and therefore I'm empathetic to all of the unique trials and tribulations and challenges that may occur in different districts. That being said, we now live in modernity. We have all of these tools, digital, you know, jet airplanes and otherwise. If enlightened minds wanted to make real improvements in the quality of education all over the state of Oregon, they could do it. But of course, they would have to be funded. So that I'm getting a little off into the weeds, but I just wanted to point out the landscape that we live in. It is a unique landscape, whereas, you know, California is just like solid people, 40 million people, 10 times as many people. The state of Washington has over twice as many people in it as Oregon does. So the density of populations make for unique dynamics in the configuration of delivering services in public education. And I just wanted to point that out. And that's again why I think it's so phenomenal that you guys were doing all that work in the 70s when the phone was a wire that went into the wall, and otherwise you had to put a carbon copy if you wanted to make 2 of those letters you were going to send. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
and I'm preaching to the choir, but what's so great about Phyllis is, and I've been so impressed by her since I met her, she's so on top of it for all of us on the board, reflecting on the history, keeping us on point, understanding about the different statutes, in the law and the regulations, et cetera, and she is completely functional and vassal with the email world. And thank God for that, because I don't know what we'd do if we didn't have you in that regard. So I want to say personally thank you to you. And I also want to say that this podcast is probably going to happen again, not too soon necessarily, but we will do it again. And one of the things that's so meaningful to me is to make sure we get Phyllis on the record, reflecting on much of this history, her history, but the history of OSTA, for the benefit of the organization moving forward over time. And one of my personal mandates, I cut a deal with everybody informally when they almost insisted on me becoming the vice president. And I said, okay, but I'm going to have one major mission, and that is to help build membership such that we can ultimately feed new leadership. Because it's almost unreasonable that one person should have to commit for 49 years to anything like Phyllis has done, and like Sally Sue has done for maybe 46 years. And now we have the incredible and dedicated Leslie Paulson and Debbie Ferry. And I don't know what we would do without the 4 of you guys, really, because running a volunteer association, I've been on boards before, it is not an easy thing. It is not a simple thing. So the fact that you all have done it gets my extreme respect, and I'm very serious about wanting there. We estimate that there's what, over 5,000 substitutes working in the state. Maybe between 5 and 8. Is that what we think?
Yes,
Yes.
usually.
And so the membership, when I got involved, and I got involved because of an issue I had with a district, and I felt very alone out here. And I Google searched, and I found the OSTA, Oregon Substitute, and there was a phone number on the website. You know whose phone number it was, right? Sally Sue's phone number. And I finally ended up talking to Sally Sue, and thank God she was so supportive and helpful. Because substitutes are often left out in the murky, dark, foggy territory of what is education. I would say that's probably true nationally. I know it's true in Oregon. And in any case, so it's imperative to me, so to bring this all full circle, that's why I'm so grateful that Phyllis showed up today to participate in this live stream so that we can start to get on the record all of this history and use some of our conversations to ideally build membership for OSTA. Now, we're not done yet. I want to go a little bit more, but we're thinking of this as an introduction and an overview. That's how I'm thinking of it. So I'm going to ask you a few more questions, and you take as much time as you want on them. So when the opportunity rang and knocked on the door, somehow, I'm not sure how, and you can go into that if you want to, for there to become a national substitute teacher association. When was that, and what was the primer originating contact or energy?
There was a substitute teacher in Boston who kept calling and sending emails and so forth. And I told Sally Sue and Yvonne Christensen, we have to go. So the three of us went to Washington, D.C.
What year?
2001. 2000.
So there was email.
And
In 2000, I believe. It's hard to remember all that. But.
So it was held in the main library downtown Washington, D.C. And they were not very well organized. I helped set up the food. I remember that. And then was a committee to decide on the name of the organization, which was National Substitute Teacher Alliance. And the president that was elected was invited to speak in an OSTA meeting. And she was a concert pianist, but she was from California, and she was associated with SEIU. Well, when we gave our report from Oregon and said that we had a statewide salary, a statewide organization, a minimum half day, and an extra pay for after 10 days, the whole assembly gave a standing ovation.
Wow.
And the representative from the union teachers, the Federation of Teachers, was courting us, and this president was trying to get us to be part of the Federation of Teachers. And we had considered that, but OSTA has always wanted to speak for itself. Every time when we found we will pay the dues and we will still be doing all the work just like we're doing now. But on the other hand, you have other resources that are good, and there are times that we feel we do maybe in a larger districts have collective bargaining. And of course, back in 1975, Eugene substitute teachers organized and established that Oregon substitute teachers have the right to bargain collectively. And they have to be in a separate bargaining group from regular teachers.
How many people were involved in that first national meeting? You guys went back for like 2 days, right?
We were.
Were there like 50 people? Was there one from every state? Was there?
There were people that were from Washington, Michigan, Florida, the Washington, D.C. area. In fact, a substitute teacher, Dottie Hearn, who helped us establish OSTA, was there.
Oh, nice. Nice, nice. Very good. Has there been much continuity since then between OSTA and the national substitute teacher?
Vaughn and the others have done more than I have on it.
In terms of,
it kept going for 5 or 6, maybe 10 years.
Oh, to the national meeting?
There's nothing on the website right now. So
okay.
I'm not too sure if it's still going.
Once again, these are all volunteer associations.
Yes.
We are volunteers. We are volunteering right now.
The thing that I learned from them, most of them are not professional teachers. And they were saying, we were telling them, if you want to get teachers' wages, be real teachers. And they were saying, education does not make you a good teacher. Availability makes you a good substitute teacher.
Availability?
They want to be there for the school districts.
Yeah, they just want.
But they don't have. All they need is a high school education.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about that recently. The licensure, the levels of license, pathways to additional levels of license. And all of that relates to how much you get paid, how many different kinds of jobs might be available for anybody in a given school district, et cetera, et cetera. It is, however, proven. A couple of things are true, I believe, and you let me know if I'm incorrect about this. The state of Oregon actually has pretty good wages for subs relative to many other states. Is that true? I think it is.
Yes.
And that's a lot because of your work.
There was a legislator, Representative May who had a degree in economics, she figured that a substitute teacher is worth 75% of a regular teacher. So she devised the plan that a substitute teacher would get 75% of the average beginning teacher
Salary,
salary.
averaged out to a daily rate.
Yes, and that would be figured by the State Department of Education every year using figures not earlier than the previous year.
ODE.
And that's what we still have.
ODE, and that's unique. Not every state has it that good. And I'm not saying it's that good, but it's better than a lot of other states. And my original issue that brought OSTA to my attention was a due process issue, if you will, an administrative or management issue. So that's my unique, close orientation and point of view in terms of the dynamics of the environment of being a substitute teacher in Oregon. When I joined the organization, I learned that there are couple of other key issues that OSTA has tried to stay focused on. One would be PERS, which is essentially, I think in layman's terms, if I may, is essentially retirement and what qualifies you to receive retirement akin to other educating professionals in this state. And it's predicated on a certain minimum amount of service annually. And there's been issues with that, particularly, I believe, and solely because, well, not solely, but particularly the last 7 or 8 years since something called a for-profit out-of-state sub-service provider dynamic has introduced itself to our state. And of course, I have very strong feelings about that dynamic. Most of us do not approve. It's been proven in all of modern research in academia about education that one of the most important things is close-knit, trusting communities. And in much of the state like Oregon, you can have that and even include substitutes if you manage it the right way, and if you have continuity and contact and relationship with everyone else who's working in any particular community in the education arena. And what happens is when certain districts hire these out-of-state sub-service providers, all kinds of things kick in that just separate us that much more from ultimately the final contingent, the students, but ultimately as well, and on a most practical level, the administration and the district offices and all kinds of other entities that it really would be nice to be connected to. I work in these local rural districts around here. None of them are very big. And over time I've gotten to know head secretaries and this and that. But it's a challenge when they put layers of bureaucracy, in this case for-profit bureaucracy, in the way just to provide that separation. My theory is there's some administrators and district leaders that want the anonymity that gives them. And that's antithetical to creating the healthy environment that they should be fostering, a positive, healthy environment for one and all constituents, substitutes, full-time teachers, janitors, cafeteria staff, office staff, everyone, right? You really want a cohesive unit, ideally.
You said that well.
Thank you very much. So I've been working on this kind of stuff for quite a while, and I appreciate your.
You know,
Go ahead. We'll wrap this up very shortly. Do you have anything else you want to say?
well, I should give.
We're going to do a welcome for the
Yeah.
annual meeting, but I'm just going to record that. So I'm going to turn the live stream off when we're done with this. And then I'm going to zoom in on you. And I'm going to be behind the camera. And then we're just going to, you can just do that.
I see.
It's,
I wish we still had that list so I could look at it. I think,
well, we covered a lot.
yes,
And I think it was a great introduction.
I think we have.
Yes. Some highlights. I mean, you know, I could go on. You can go on. I've been on the phone
No,
with you.
but
You can go on. I know.
I think we have hit the important points.
Yes, and that we're trying to keep it ongoing. We were just at the Capitol. We have different efforts going on. I'm trying to help, and we're all trying to help build membership. So, if you have anything to do with education anywhere around Oregon or nationally, please feel free to leave a comment, send us a message, subscribe to my Mount Angel Theater Studio YouTube page. That's where we're broadcasting right now. If you want to connect with OSTA, that's OSTA, standing for the Oregon Substitute Teacher Association. You can find us on the website, which is
.org.
.org. Thank you. Oh boy, see, what would I do without you? And it's a lot to remember. We do have a Facebook page or two, but you can contact us directly from the website. Once again, our annual meeting, where we will also be delivering the annual Substitute Teacher of the Year Award, will be Friday, October 11th. I believe we start about 8:30 a.m., 8 to 8:30 a.m., maybe 9 formally the program begins.
Yes, and that program was started in 2000. We sent it out to all the school districts to nominate outstanding substitute teachers for the Oregon Substitute Teacher of the Year.
And we have Sally Sue to thank for implementing that in a very functional and fancy way.
That it has been a wonderful program. Plus, we have the Substitute Teacher Day at the Capitol in May during Education Week, when the substitute teachers of the year are introduced, and they are introduced in their hometown school board meetings as well. But the thing I love about it, these wonderful teachers are able to get up in front of our association and tell us what education means to them, how they go about their teaching day. And it's just wonderful to gain knowledge from them for the way ahead.
Well, wonderful point. I think in terms of lifelong learning, particularly as a substitute, the peer review process, where we're actually interfacing with each other and sharing information, as we often do every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. On our weekly Zoom call office hours. It's open to every member and non-member. All you got to do is send us an email, or maybe even just find it on the website. I think you're absolutely right. Experiences to help each other, because there is nothing scarier, I would submit, on the planet Now, maybe if you're going 600 miles an hour above the planet, that's a different story. But there's nothing scarier on the planet than going into a school or a classroom for the first time, particularly maybe middle school, and you don't know, you know nothing about the place or the kids or the people. I often came up with this in the last year. People would say, well, what's your favorite grade to teach? Because I do K through 12, whatever I choose, really. And I say, it has nothing to do with the grade. It has to do with the people in the classroom, whether they're kindergartners or 12th graders or 7th graders. It goes to the quality of the character of the people in the classroom. If you have a good group of kids, you generally have a wonderful day. If you have a not such great group of kids, you might have a very miserable day. And the job is, number one, improvisation. And improvisation, as most people know, and we're both musicians, is being in the moment at the nth degree, at the highest degree you can be in the moment. That's, successful improvisation, which, by the way, we were designed for, because in the old days, that's what kept us alive, So it's a very serious endeavor that we've engaged in. Phyllis, how long did you teach, Phyllis? 40 years? 50 years?
10 years full-time and 35 as a substitute.
45 years. And I've taught off and on throughout my life in various settings, community colleges, community centers, private schools. And I finally got my Oregon sanctioned, restricted, bona fide with a college degree license. I pursued it in the summer of 2019, and I got it the day the governor closed the schools in March of 2020. And since then, and since the schools resumed in 2021, I've been subbing in local rural Willamette Valley school districts. And it has been a phenomenal education in humanity, administration, management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then to be involved with this very dedicated group of wonderful practitioners who started and nurtured and perpetuated this very excellent association. I'm just very grateful. I'm grateful for you coming today and participating, and we will do it again. Is that fair enough?
Thank you, John. And not only that, but as a result of this Teachers of the Year program, Val Lukanen went to On Point, and we have a grant for the Teachers of the Year program from the credit union.
On Point
and
Credit Union.
We can use this $1,000 to enhance our speakers at the conferences. We applied for it again. It's going to be an ongoing program, and we will try to make this a 501c3, Friends of Oregon Substitute Teachers Association.
As a bona fide nonprofit to help us get a little bit more funding, so it would fortify us in doing this work. Once again, we have no staff, we have no office. It's a bunch of teachers or ex-teachers who choose to focus on this work and trying to improve circumstances, situations, pay, due process, etc., for substitute teachers around the state of Oregon. Phyllis has been doing it since 1975. We're looking forward to the 50th anniversary next year. I think we'll try to do a few special things. And along the way, we're going to do some more of these podcasts, reflect. I think we do one or two more about the history. I think there's enough history that we could cover one or two more. And then we could do one or two about your vision moving forward into the future, which starts with the nonprofit concept, because that's going to make us plausibly more potent and a more significant voice around the state. If there's 5,000 to 8,000 substitutes in the state active, we should have at least 1,000 or more as members, and that's my personal goal. So I'm going to be generating this content with Phyllis again, and we'll be adding to it. I'm going to have other substitutes here. I'm going to have Mary Harville here on Sunday, and I'm going to have a gal named Carissa Dow, who's a Democrat running against Rick Lewis, the state rep.
Oh,
She's going to be in this seat Friday. So though I'm not being paid, I'm on this mission, and I'm going to keep it up until something happens, you know, until we have some potency and some impact on this little theater, on the membership of OSTA, and frankly and bluntly and ultimately on the legislators at the Capitol, because they do hold the power of the purse strings and the written law. So thank you again for coming, Phyllis.
Thank you.
And now, as you do in a small town like Mayberry, or in this case, Mount Angel, John gets up, carries the microphone with him so the people don't have to feel like too lonely or anything, while I walk over to the computer and shut down the live stream. And Phyllis, I think we did a great job, and I'm going to look forward to doing it again. And wave goodbye to the people. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Phyllis. We will see you all very, very soon. Stop recording.